you want to put your hands together, and I'll leave it up to Ian to finish the introduction and to introduce his topic tonight. Please give him a warm welcome.
Thanks, mate. Royd, you also forgot to mention that little episode when we got stuck up a mountain together.
I never ever mention that to anybody. I'm too embarrassed to ever mention that.
I'll let you explain what happened there. Anyway, it's a really interesting story. Okay, well, thank you very much, everyone, for having me here in Yorkshire. I've got a shameless plug here for a workshop series that I'm running, starting in September. We've got 5 remaining places on that one, so go and check out the website and have a look. So my talk tonight is all about these 2 key questions that we all face regularly of how much will it cost? How long will it take? Has anybody ever been asked either of those questions before? Yeah.
About 3 times a week.
Yeah. Right, let's first start with some common myths. So we're doing Agile, so we can't provide you with a plan. There's an interesting one that we hear quite a lot of. Gantt charts are so not Agile. It's another myth there. All right. We only do #no estimates. Any #no estimates folk in the room? Ooh, look at them, even scared to put their hands up. We can't give you dates. We only work in points. Oh, and by the way, points don't mean anything. All right. So there's a few, and I'm sure there's lots of other myths as well that we can kind of come across quite often. But the 2 common questions, as we've already said, is how long will it take and how much does it cost? So no matter what we think or say in Agile, these are still really, really critical questions that we have to be able to answer. All right, so what we're going to talk about now is the conversations that go around this kind of topic of estimation. So conversation 1, how long will it take? Now the usual script for this is the inexperienced developer says that'll take 2 days tops. The experienced developer says that'll take at least 2 weeks. All right. The inexperienced project manager doesn't say anything. There you go. 2 days sounds okay. Right, give up on that. But I'll only schedule a day and a half. The experienced project manager says 2 weeks sounds okay, but it's going to be at least 3. Is this familiar with anyone? Yeah. And then sales come along. Good news, got the contract signed, we got 1 day. Shit. Now, of course, that's in a particular setting of a particular type of company, but it's the same thing of these same conversations that we have, and it's that disjointed, disconnected view of the world that we have. Now, for this next section, I'd like a volunteer to help me with a script. Okay. So this is the other conversation that normally happens. All right, you ready for this? So
Where do you want me?
You can be the developer, and I will be the manager. Right. So I need a cost estimate on your projects.
Sorry, I've got no idea. I haven't even gathered the user requirements.
Don't worry, I won't hold you to the estimate.
Yeah, you will. You'll put it on in the plan. Forget we even had this conversation. Then fire me when I go over budget.
Give me a number or I'll fire you right now.
All right? It'll cost you £10 million.
No, that's too high. So, thank you very much. Round of applause. So the amount of times I've heard that or actually been in that conversation, it's really, really painful. Because actually at the end of the day, the manager's already got an idea in the head of what's too high and what's too low. Okay? So again, what we need to start to do is explore some constraints. Now, the other thing I want to talk about is this scenario here. It's almost a Gantt chart, isn't it? Now, whatever we call this here, this box, go live, it comes under many different kind of guises. Could be deadlines, it's an expectation, it's some kind of milestone commitment, or it's a fait accompli. In other words, that's the date, it's been communicated. Or if someone comes to you and says, when are we going to get this finished? And as a team, you come up with some dates, and then somebody jumps in, whoa, what are you doing? That's going to go on the wall, that's going to go in a plan. That's locked in now. And then what happens then is, we have this, what I call the singularity. Actually, it's worse than the singularity, because we can't even begin to discuss what happens if we go past that date. It's taboo. No. What we need to do is we need to don the armour. We now all need to work towards that date. Okay? But what I'd like to do is, has anyone ever felt the fear of the date? Yeah. It's that fear, isn't it? Oh, God, the date is there. It's up on the wall. It's in a plan. It's been spoken about. Oh, my goodness. That's it. We're locked in. We're committed now. So what I want you to do is to think about something else. So this is a technique which has been in front of you all the time. It's called constraint-driven estimation. And so what we're now going to do is we're going to explore some constraints. So there's three major ones. It's the deadline, it's the budget, and it's the capability that we've got. All right. So let's look at this go live a bit more. So the question we've got to ask is, what happens if we go past that deadline? What does it mean? So people who write business cases and, God, I almost feel like I'm speaking the taboo here. We've gone past the deadline. So the first question is this a hard or a soft deadline? Does anyone know the difference between a hard and a soft deadline?
Made up and not.
Okay, let's all right, a soft deadline then. So a soft deadline looks something like this. So for every week or every month that we go past the deadline, there's some impact to the overall business case or the reason for doing this. Okay, it's quite often it's articulated in the terms of value. A lot of the dot-coms I've worked for, they will associate a loss or a potential loss. So they'll say for every week we go past, we've missed the opportunity by, say, 10,000 quid a week or some sort of figure. So they'll calculate that and they'll pull that together. So ultimately, these sorts of soft deadlines are very, very common, and we've all probably experienced that, okay? The next type is a hard deadline. In other words, it's a cliff edge. As soon as we go past that date, does anyone give me an example of a hard deadline? Regulatory. Sorry, what was yours? Oh, sorry, yeah, what?
Christmas or the races or
Grand National.
Yeah, Grand National.
Yeah, so if you're in a particular industry, can you imagine Sky Betting and Gaming ringing up Cheltenham? Sorry, can you just push the race back, what was it, the Cheltenham Cup back a few weeks, because we've not quite got this released in time. So, yeah, so absolute hard deadlines. You go past there, your business case falls off a cliff edge. All right, so it's really important that we understand the nature of the deadline that we're dealing with. Is anybody here working to a deadline at the moment? All right, so keep your hands up. Lower your hand if it's a hard deadline. Okay, so there's a few soft deadlines still hanging around. Do you know are you able to quantify, not out loud now obviously, what is the impact of missing that date? A couple of nods, yeah? Some no's? Great. What sort of deadline have you got?
It's the start of the Premiership.
Right. Wow. Well,
hard is difficult.
yeah. Okay. But again, it's really interesting. When you sit down and start to explore this with managers, with people who are actually pushing these deadlines out to you, this is when you start to find out whether it is a made-up deadline, whether it's something somebody just dreamt up, or, the thing of, well, I've mentioned it to somebody in a corridor, so now it's set in stone. We've got to do that, or we're going to start to look bad. Well, let's quantify, let's understand what is the impact it's going to have on us. Right, okay, so the next one is budget. So exploring the budget. What do you think we could explore around budget? Any ideas?
Amount of resources on the project.
Potentially.
How much money you've got?
Yeah. Yeah.
Features and whether you can drop some features that aren't relevant, maybe?
That's more kind of scope for me. But yeah, it's all kind of related. Hosting costs, yeah, potentially. Lots of costs. Good stuff. How much are you willing to spend is probably the first question. So I'm actually in a situation when I'm bidding for work with clients as well. They'll say, well, how much will it cost? I say, well, how much do you want to spend? I go, well, I'll tell you that. I said, no, all right. He said, well, we haven't really got a budget. I said, all right, so we're on for a couple of cool mil here, are we? Oh, no, oh, so there is a budget. Right, so let's start to narrow that in. Let's start to understand. Because ultimately, it's how much you're willing to spend to solve this problem. Because then the other question I always ask is, well, how much value do you expect this to generate? What is that? And quite often when people come to you asking for how much is it going to cost, in some respects, they're asking you to write their business case for them because they're not quite confident or sure of what their business case is all about. So again, this is essentially, we're trying to explore what are they working, what are their parameters they're working within. All right. Now the final one, capability. So it amazes me when they say, well, hypothetically, if we went out to the market and got lots and lots of people and we had lots of budget, how much would this cost? Well, let's look at the capability. How many people do we actually have in our teams? Yeah, it's a fixed cost environment in most teams. You've got a fixed size of team. They will run for however X number of months or weeks throughout development. It's very quantifiable. Now, even if you said, no, but we can go and get a load of contractors. Yeah, where are you going to put them? What's your cost of onboarding those contractors or permanent staff or whatever? I know a few organisations in the room here have moved into bigger offices. I'm pretty sure they've filled those offices already. Okay, so again, we have constraints. We just can't keep getting more people on board. So we've got to explore those constraints.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
What's that got to do with coffee?
I couldn't find any other icon, I was tired. Yeah, just people. What's that?
Well, people like coffee.
I don't know. I don't.
Might be tea.
Yeah, might be hot chocolate. Yeah. Anyway, what's that got to do with hats? I don't know.
Well, how many can we get under the bonnet? That's a bit more relevant.
Yeah, like a rabbit under a hat.
Yeah.
No, I like your thinking there. That wasn't the logic, by the way. I just discovered that. So yeah, how many can we get under the bonnet? So even if you could get armies and armies of people and throw loads of budget and, was it resource, somebody said? That's it. You might still have constraints that only so many people can work on a particular code base at the same time. So again, we have to explore what are these constraints and how does that affect us and our ability to actually do stuff. All right. So basically, constraints are your friend. Explore the constraints. Have a think now about all the constraints that you face in your day-to-day jobs and in your teams, and think about how you can start to quantify some of those constraints. Because if a project has no constraints, then don't do it. It means there's no business case behind it. Is anybody here working on a project where they don't know what the business case is? For people? Yeah.
It's not the whole project, just what I'm actually working on at the moment.
Yeah. I'm using the word project very loosely there as well. Obviously, that's a bit of an interesting one in itself. Yeah, so basically we need to, so once we understand the constraints, we can start to do something like this. So this was a very complex spreadsheet I put together in about a minute. So does anyone here operate internal like a blended day rate? It's like an internal charging model. Pardon? No. This is so a lot of organisations from a project costings, they'll say, right, well we charge everybody out internally at like 300 quid a day or whatever it is, normally 275, 300. So what we do is we simply say, what's the team size along this x-axis? Along here we say how many weeks, and we do the simple calculation, and we get this matrix of cost. Now, if we overlay our first constraints, anything past there is too late. We've got a deadline, so we've automatically ruled out the first part of it. We may decide, well, actually, we need at least this number of people. In other words, may need a BA, a couple of developers, a tester as our absolute minimum. So we need at least 5 or more. Maybe once we get past the team size of 9, it's too many people. So we start to bring that in and reduce that. Potentially, we know that our current cycle time or our way of delivering is going to take at least 6 weeks to get anything out the door. Okay, so again, we start to eliminate them. Maybe the budget, too much. So again, what we've started to do is hone in just on our basic constraints. We don't even know what it is we're delivering yet, but it's a way you can overlay these and actually facilitate a conversation with whoever's asking you to write their business case for them. Does that make sense? So there we are. How much will it cost? How long will it take? But we don't even know what it is yet. All right. So once you get into delivery, this is where we start to then use adaptive planning. Does anybody here do adaptive planning? Anyone heard of that? Probably heard of it, yeah. Okay, to manage expectations as you go through. And the simple tool that I use for this is just a burn-up chart. So again, is anybody here using burn-up charts? Anyone using burn-down charts? Okay. Anyone not using either of them? Right, okay. So we'll just do a little bit of a quick overview of this. So it's very simple. This is the amount of scope that we need to get through. Obviously, scope changes over time. Normally goes up. You can negotiate it down, but it tends to go up. I've got a simple board here. So to do, doing, and done. So as soon as something's done, it adds to this blue line here. Doing, don't count, because it's not done. And so simply, we plot this as over time, and when the blue line crosses the orange line, we're kind of done. What could be simpler? But of course, we have variation. And what this means is that as you go through, the secret to adaptive planning is regularly publishing this to your stakeholders. Don't publish a RAG status, just publish the graph and actually drive them to think about what they're seeing themselves. And we normally do like a kind of best case, worst case. So we're always sort of managing those expectations as to when things are going to finish. Yep.
What's the difference between that bottom green line and the Gantt chart, the pessimistic Gantt chart? With the ordering of the tickets being done?
Yeah, so the big difference is this is what we call empirical planning. It's based on kind of yesterday's weather, it's stuff that's actually done. When you have a Gantt chart, that's more deterministic planning. In other words, here's the plan, live the plan, and then we have to continuously manage and update the chart and all the dependencies. In other words, there's actually no issue with Gantt charts. Oh God, you've opened the right kind of worms here. So there's no issue with Gantt charts as such, but there is a problem with Microsoft Project. Yeah. Microsoft Project wasn't around in 1910 when Henry Gantt came up with this concept. So again, Gantt charts are fine, but all this is a way of being able to forecast or predict where it is we're going to end up. Yeah. So there's no need to kind of put in here any kind of contingency or anything like that.
I would just add that I think the issue with Gantt charts that they take away that you get from this style of planning is actually the ordering of delivery is very flexible here. There's no implied ordering of when people are going to get a specific feature, because actually that will change very will frequently change as you go through and as the engineering team faces certain challenges and identifies dependencies and learns about the work. Whereas with a Gantt chart, you've got this very fixed set of deliverables that will be delivered in the order that they've been defined in the plan. And it's, to be honest, even if you're cool with changing that, it's a pain in the arse. I mean, who really wants to reshuffle that every single time? Oh yeah, well we actually shipped that thing that was due in 8 weeks' time already because we had to do that first because that made more sense. And it's like, this just updates itself and you can knock it up in a very simple spreadsheet or anything else. It's sort of far simpler to manage that.
Very, very simple, very straightforward.
Can I just ask, so literally just starting with Agile, so using burn downs, so the fact that you just said burn up, is like, what? what was that? It literally just turned it on its head and it's nothing else, or is it?
No, I think there's a big difference. So what I observe a lot of teams do is they tend to use burn down charts when they've kind of got a short period of time. So you've got X scope, how we're doing each day, burning down to a particular goal. That's very short term. I think there's a few issues with the way people do burn down charts as well. So particularly when you start to see things like Team City or Jira, things like that, a lot of the default templates are asking people for, give us an estimate every day, how much time do you think you've got left? That's such flawed concepts because they're always 95% complete all the way through until, and you see what you see in a burn down chart is it kind of goes horizontal and then right at the last day, it all suddenly comes in. Okay, so I think the beauty of a burn up chart is it tells a story as scope changes. Yeah, this has gone up. Well, why did that go up? What happened there?
Based on what you said then, so when you said short term, that's exactly what I'm using it for. So literally, maybe like a week or 2 weeks, just to kind of get an expectation of when we are actually going to deliver this, based upon the estimates.
Yeah.
But for a longer piece of work, a project that's over so many months or whatever, would you say then that a burn up would be a lot more appropriate?
Yeah, definitely. Because this is an oversimplified view as well. Sometimes I'll have multiple scope lines. So this is maybe your MVP. Then we've got feature or release 1, then release 2. And people are always asking, well, when's the next release? When are we going to get that? And we can start to, these lines here, okay, well, I created that by hand in PowerPoint. But you basically, if you're doing it in Excel, I don't even depend on the averaging and all the kind of formulas. I will hand draw the lines on there to actually drive a conversation with stakeholders, to get them to challenge what I've done there. Yeah. What we do is bringing it to life and showing them. I mean, you can use this for all sorts of things, not just scope, because this is just output. This is how many stories we're completing over time. What about the outcome? Have we reduced dropout on our main customer journey by 1%? Having a burn-up chart for that is another powerful way of doing that. So again, there's different ways and different things that you can look at. All right. Thank you.